Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your weekly look into the realities of being a designer. This week, I'm joined by renowned hand letterer Ian Barnard, the retro design mogul that is Dustin Lee, and prolific South African illustrator Lisa Glans. In this week's episode, we dig into all things pricing. We discuss how to price yourself properly, how to attract the right kinds of clients, and the ever taboo subjects of working for free or exposure. There's a ton covered in this episode, so let's get into it. I guess from a pricing perspective, we've all had different experiences. Mine have been everything from working as a designer myself to hiring other people and having the moment where it's either like it really grates on you if someone charges you too much, or you think you're getting an incredible deal and they're underpricing themselves. So it's kind of seeing both sides of the coin. Pricing products. I mean, there's like a billion different aspects to pricing. I don't know if you guys feel the same about that. You've had a few different bits in your careers.
Yeah, well, in my case, I mean, if I just go back to my graphic design days, that was my biggest struggle. Especially in the beginning, you and ah about what you should be charging because you don't, you want the work, but at the same time, you don't want to underprice yourself. So it is a battle, but I think initially, when you're first starting out, it's a totally different mindset, I think, that you should take to pricing compared to when you kind of 3 to 5 years down the line. Then I think you can get a bit more bolshy and start charging, more of what you think you're worth. But
Agreed.
I mean, I hate to say that. Young. I mean, I don't know if you guys agree. Like when you're young and you're first starting out, you might have to take a knock.
I completely agree, and that makes sense. It should be that way. Who starts at the top? You're not going to be designing for a week and be charging like $100,000 per job. That doesn't happen in any industry.
No.
Even if you're in a traditional kind of corporate environment or office job, you're not going to walk in and be managing director. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, even though I knew at the time that I was probably a bit faster than most people, so I probably was suffering in terms of that. But at the same time, I wanted the experience, so I was willing to take a knock in terms of pricing. But I still think that it's quite difficult for people to know when you can kind of push a price up and when you can't, or when you shouldn't, should I say. But I think the rule of thumb for me always was later on, say 2 or 3 years down the line, when I started gaining experience and was better at what I did, and you kind of have to build into your pricing. I think a lot of people forget this. You actually need to build in your experience into the pricing. So it's not just how much you're charging for that hour. You also need to charge for your expertise, I think. And I think the better you get at it, you can charge more.
There's a great example of that where the classic moan about clients is when they say, "Oh, that only took you 15 minutes."
Yeah.
And it's like, it took me 15 minutes and 20 years of experience.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm getting at. Yeah, you have to remember that. And also the other thing is that I used to always think of, is this really worth it? You have to figure out, me doing this job, the amount of effort I'm putting in, the research, the dealing with the client, the phone call, the heartache, all the things that go with it. That all has to be included in the price. It's not just the job that you're sitting down in front of the computer to do. It's all the other little goodies around it.
Well, and two, I think there's an unrealistic expectation that's set when you're in design school, you're first starting. I remember when I was first starting, and I couldn't get a client to save my life. I mean, I was going on, Craigslist and 99 Designs and all the things that people tell you not to do. And at the same time, I was reading things like the, Graphic Design Standards Manual or whatever it's called. And it would be like, the average price someone charges for a logo is, $7,000, $10,000 or something, or $5,000. So when someone would respond, I'd feel like I needed to respond with a price like that, but that's totally not true, because it's all about the position you're at. So when you're in a position where you don't have anything coming in, you don't have any reputation, you kind of have to just realize part of my payment is the fact that I'm building a reputation. So I should focus more on like building that and doing jobs that are going to help build that and help to build relationships for future money. Because I think, when you can charge more, like I don't take jobs. No, I don't really take any jobs. But when now people ask me to though, like Jeez, people email me and it's like very clear, like they feel like, well, you're the only person that could do this. And I could easily charge a good amount because I'm like, no one else will do this. And it's the same, like, with any of you, like Ian, like if someone wants someone to write on a football, like with lettering, like no one else is going to do that and have like the coolness behind it. It's Ian is. And if someone wants that kind of illustration like Lisa does, like no one is going to do that but Lisa. And when you're at that level, you kind of got someone in a position where you can say, I'm going to charge you what I'm worth. I'm not going to try to, do a shakedown on you and take as much money as I can, but I'm going to charge what I'm worth because I know you can't get this anywhere else.
I agree.
I mean, that feeds into a lot of what we talked about finding your own style, all that kind of stuff. When you carve out that kind of brand for yourself, brands are worth more than labor.
Yeah, but it does take a while to get there, though.
True that.
Oh yeah, completely. But that's kind of what I said at the start, in that it's that journey from the bottom up. Like you have to take that into account. And if people listening right at the start of their journey, like it's okay to be not paid what you think you eventually should be. Or, I mean, there's a big debate about freelance not meaning free. And I don't know, this is like a real contentious point for a lot of people. My personal take is I actually think free work can pay off.
Yeah,
if it's right,
if it's on your terms.
It does pay off. Like it pays off. It just doesn't pay off in a direct, check into your bank account.
Of
but
course,
you got to be careful.
We've all been overpromised by the clients who are like, I promise it'll give you exposure, and in your gut when that's not going to happen. But
it's going to be the next
if I've been
Facebook.
Designing a week, of course it will.
I think I think if you decide, I think we spoke about this before. If you decide to do it for free, and you're the one that instigated that, that's different from them saying, "Can you do this for free?"
Oh yeah.
And that's when it's bad. Is when they're asking you to do it for free.
Yeah.
Is a sort of no. But when you're like approaching someone because you either appreciate what that company does, maybe it's a charity that you're passionate about, or it's reaching out to someone because you think, if I could do something for that company, it would be great for my portfolio, so I want to do it for free. It's a different kettle of fish to someone coming along saying.
Do you remember the example of the guy who redesigned American Airlines? I think it was their branding. And he did like this amazing, really long webpage where he redesigned all their tickets, showed the before and after of like why it was super unclear before. And he did that all for free, just geeking out over it. And I don't know if he either got to work for them or just got a ridiculous amount of exposure, because designers everywhere were sharing it as like a fantastic example. That's the kind of free work that pays off. So Ian, you hit the nail on the head. Like that's so different than someone, trying to pull a fast one on you. That's you being proactive. Just like, here's what I want to put out into the world.
Yeah.
I think, especially go for it, Ian.
So I think, because it is a bit of a joke, but it's a warning sign when anyone says, "Can you do this for exposure?"
Definitely. Because
normally that whoever you're doing it for hasn't really got that exposure. So that's just should be ringing alarm bells. If I've only got it like once or twice. An actual
the exposure promise,
and I was
it's insane to me. Like I used to be in a band with my friend. It's the equivalent of someone being like, "I'll give you crazy exposure," and then you come and play a gig in their garden shed to no one. Like I don't understand how they can even
I think
think
the
that's
once
a
or
proposition.
twice is quite low. I had it more than that. I had 5 to 10 times. I think people.
I told you I'm sorry about that, Lisa. Okay.
Well, the funny thing about the exposure thing too is oftentimes when people say you'll get exposure, maybe they're like, I have like these like, magic granola bars, and like if you do the packaging for it, like you're going to get massive exposure. And you're like, well, yeah, like if you do a good job selling and marketing this, I'll get massive exposure to people that eat granola bars. But I need massive exposure to people that buy like graphic design stuff, not granola bar eaters.
Exactly. Oh my goodness.
I saw a thing from Chase Jarvis, who I follow, and he does a great job over at Creative Live, and he put out this video about pricing, saying a common mistake is people try and convert clients. So it's either they're a client who likes stuff for free and you try and convert them to paid, or it's a client that pays you $1,000 per project and you're trying to convert them to a $5,000 client.
That is so true.
And he said people do it all the time. I'm literally just stealing his words here, but it really kind of stuck with me because I watched it before this call. And it's so true. So many people try to do that. They think, oh, if I just make all my clients pay me more, and it doesn't work. Like the answer he was saying, and he's completely right, is get bigger clients. Don't change your existing clients. If you have $1,000 client, they're $1,000 client. If you want a $50,000 client, go and get them.
I did that the other day.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What, you got a $50,000 client?
No. I wish that would be great. Was last year I was doing some stuff for a company, and some live calligraphy stuff, and I said that this year I'm upping my rates for doing that, and I haven't heard anything back.
Oh no.
But I have to say though, like a lot of people I think are willing to pay more if like what they get is like beyond their expectations. Like I know, like I mentioned this, or I think about this a lot. I hired Chris De Lorenzo to do the little Retro Supply character and the logo for me, and I always liked his work. And he charged a fair price. It wasn't a cheap price, and I don't think it was an outrageous price. But the work was so well done. He went above and beyond, and as a result of that, like I would have paid more in the future because I was like, well, you just delivered everything and you went above and beyond, and I feel like I can really trust you. So I think too, like if you can like establish that first time, you have a lot of leverage as well.
Yeah, just over delivering.
Yeah,
basically,
absolutely.
Like when I was freelancing as a web designer, I would always try and do that. I'd do the kind of classic under promise, over deliver, and then I found I could increase my price because I thrived on referrals from my clients, and then each time I got a referred client, I'd slightly up the price. So it was like a chain reaction where each new client would make me slightly more money.
I think it also comes down to it also comes down to confidence in your abilities. I suppose for me, I have more confidence now because I'm niching in something that I've practiced a lot more in. Whereas when I was doing the sort of jack of all trades, doing a lot of stuff, I struggled with charging probably what I was worth because I wasn't very confident in delivering. And I suppose that's a whole, the more confident you are, the easier it is you're going to sell that price that you want to receive.
It's a good
and
point.
I was always very, I don't know, I doubted because it's not like, you're not a builder where you know exactly how many bricks you need to build this building. Here's the plans, you know how it's all going to roughly work out. Obviously things go wrong, but with design, there's no B. There's no, you've got to start A, but you haven't a clue where B might be.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so the problem is, you might get you're doing some real designy stuff and you just don't get any inspiration. Pinterest may fail to deliver, and you're just like, I'm spending so long on this, is it ever going to work out? And so it sort of knocks your confidence, and you spent too much time on it for the money that you charge, and it's tricky.
I seriously think the whole key of pricing is confidence. That's like the be all and end all, because you cannot confidently price yourself when you're desperate. For example, I've never met like a desperate designer who's needs the job to put food on the table, otherwise they're going to starve. They're not going to swan in and confidently be like, that'll be $5,000, my friend. Like it doesn't work.
Well,
and like for example, like some of the top designers I've followed on their site, it will say I'm booked up for the next 6 months. Like it's supply and demand. If you are inundated with client requests, then you naturally raise your rate until you reach that balance where your rates are as high as they can be, but you're still bringing clients in. And some will drop out, but the ones that remain are going to pay for it.
Absolutely.
And
yeah. I
like that's all there is.
I was thinking a very similar thing that like, I know for like, and I'm curious if you guys feel the same way too. Like when you have, clients lined up or money in the bank, whichever, they're essentially the same thing, just in different forms in a lot of ways. The easier it is for you to walk away. You know, they always say the person that can walk away from the negotiation table easiest is the person that wins the negotiation. So if you're able to say, look, if you can do it, you can. And if you can't, you can't. It's fine. You know, let's talk later or whatever. You're at a huge advantage.
Yeah, of course. And you just say, well, this is what I'm worth. If that's a good fit for you, great. If not, there's plenty of cheaper people around. And it's like bordering on being aloof, but it's not. It's just confidence in yourself.
I think it's the same thing, but I see it from a different angle. Is that it's actually about the quality of your clients, because if your clients are good quality, in other words, they understand what design is worth, then they're willing to pay you for your expertise. They allow you to actually be the designer that they're paying, instead of they all of a sudden have a degree in design themselves. Then that whole marriage of like, it's a good relationship, they are high quality clients for all the things I've just mentioned, then you can charge what you're worth and they're willing to pay for it. So but that again, that comes with confidence. But I think, so as a designer, you not only have responsibility to do a good job, but you also have a responsibility for your own sanity and your own pocket to choose quality clients. And I know that's hard when you're struggling.
For me, that brings up, I'm curious what you think about this, because like sometimes I feel like really like people that hire a lot of designers, especially if you're not represented and you're just representing yourself, I feel like there's a lot of big companies that hire designers literally almost every day, and they've become so good at it that they won't necessarily initially, they will basically get you for whatever the cheapest prices they can get you for. And unless you're very astute at negotiating it, you won't get that. So are those people good clients, or
I think
are they
depends.
not?
I think it depends on your vision that you have for your business. Like for example, my vision was, I knew I didn't want to hire a second person, so I knew whatever had to happen in my studio, I had to be able to do it myself. So it meant that the jobs that I got in had to pay really well, but I was able to actually fulfill them. So if that big client that you just described is paying the bills at a reasonable rate, and I'm, you know, I can take on other work, or I'm only doing their work and they're paying me well, then that's cool. But if it's not fulfilling that, then no, then I don't take them as a client. So it is difficult, because as I said, when you are kind of looking for work and you're looking for business, but I still think that if you start building within yourself this sense of a vision of what kind of designer you want to be, what kind of work you want to do, and how you want to project yourself in the industry, slowly over time, that reality actually happens. And I think then you can pick and choose your clients. I mean, I had so many people sort of near the end of my graphic design career just not willing, when I would quote them what my standard rate was for a logo and you know, letterhead and branding, etc. Those that said, oh, that's too much, I'd say, well, you know, I'm sorry, can't help you, basically. I wasn't willing to drop my rate.
Love that.
I would actually go as far as to say, if you're not hearing that, at least on occasion, you're doing something wrong. If you're playing it so safe that no one ever turns around and says, sorry, that's too much.
Yeah, good point.
That is so true.
Then you're being too timid.
Yeah,
totally.
I think it's also worth pointing out, this is not design. This is any product, service, industry on the planet. There is always a scale of pricing. Like, for example, you can pay, you know, $100,000, $200,000, $250,000 for a Ferrari. Or you could have my car, which is worth about as much as my shoes at the minute. It's the worst car in the world. And there's a whole scale and you know, a big area between that low and high point. And the same goes for design. And I think designers need to get out of their head in thinking that clients automatically are attracted to the lowest rate, even like the bigger clients, because they're not. It's like, would you guys, you know, I wouldn't go and buy a formal suit for £5 because it would be terrible. And the people who buy a Ferrari wouldn't want my car. I mean, most people wouldn't want my car. But I think understanding that, you know, if you're going for the higher price people, they're going to want higher price designers. They're not going to be jumping on like Fiverr or 99 Designs or any of those sites because it's not suitable for them as a person or an organization.
And I think that's what you have to bear in mind when people, you know, majority of the time I get stuff emailed, you know, inquiring about job, asking the right questions to find out where they're coming from and making sure, you know, because it could be the case they're emailing you, but they're a sort of 99 Designs style of person. Yeah. And so you may want to say, actually, this is not the right fit. And it's quite hard sometimes to distinguish that. One of the best questions you can ask is, have you got a budget? If they say no, then
then you know there's problems.
Avoid using them because, like, if they haven't put anything aside, whatever you charge, they're going to go, oh, it's too expensive.
Yeah.
And then you ask them to compare that. They go, well, what's that compared to? Oh, it's just too expensive. I had this price in mind. So you did have a budget, but you just didn't tell me. So
what do you guys think about people that say they don't have a budget per se, but sometimes people are like, well, you can have equity, and I know that sounds like kind of like saying exposure, but sometimes I think that's a legitimate thing. Like, do you guys ever feel like it's appropriate to accept equity in something?
I've never heard that.
Me neither. It depends on what that equity is. If it's a whole lot of like shaving cream, no thanks.
What do you mean?
Why have you gone with that as an example? You can make a little fake beard or something. That'd be well worth it.
They're like, we've got shaving cream. We don't got money, but we do have a lot of shaving cream we can give you.
If anyone ever offered to pay me in shaving cream, I would at least pay attention. I'd be like, you sir are a maverick.
Think about the potential media exposure of saying you got paid in shaving cream, being like, how much did this logo cost? This much shaving cream.
I would love to do that. This makes me want to like prank call a local design agency, and like I've got some king prawns in front of me. Just like offer a few of those.
So what kind of equity were you talking about, Dustin?
Well, I know like when I feel like when I was down in the Bay Area, you'd hear this more where like someone needs a designer to do a lot of stuff, and maybe they don't have a lot of money, but like maybe it's like experienced business, entrepreneurs that have a good chance of success, but they don't have a lot of capital, and they might say like, hey, we're going to need you to do a lot of design, but in exchange for that, we'll give you like 10% share in the company. So you're kind of gambling, but like you can kind of look at them and say, well, like maybe it's someone like Tom who's like, like a young Richard Branson, and you're like, this guy's probably going to like make something that makes a good amount of money. Like maybe I should take 10% and do the design for free.
I don't know. Personally, I'd smell a rat, to be honest.
Yeah.
I would say 99% of the time you would be right.
What?
I've been I've been offered equity a few times. I think it's maybe more common in the web design industry.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Or with coders and stuff.
I don't think I've ever gone for it. And I think just go with your gut, as with all things. Like you can tell if something's really going to take off. I mean, I'd compare that to you get angel investors and business people where they will get equity. Instead of being for their money, they get equity for their advice.
Mm-hmm. So and for their connections.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a fair trade. They get a gamble on a big payoff, and they don't put any money up, but they put their time up. And it would work the same with design. Like, if Uber was taking off and they said, do you want some equity to do a logo for us? I'd jump at that chance. But, each case by case kind of merit, has to be assessed by you.
Mm-hmm. It depends on how big the job is as well. If it was, if it was something really large that it was quite a bit of money or quite a bit of your time, then having equity is not going to pay for the kids' dinner or
that's high risk.
The mortgage. So
exactly, and that all falls into that case by case basis for you. Like it has to work from all sides, and that's why I think my example of the Ferraris and the expensive people. The same goes all the way across the market. Like there's a reason why free work exists and why, cheaper sites exist and design contests and all that kind of stuff. Like it wouldn't exist if there wasn't a market for it.
Right.
So there's people right the way along that spectrum, doing all kinds of work, and you can choose to remain in whatever sector if that suits you and you're making good money, if it's like high volume and low cost, or you can move up and attract the bigger clients. And another thing to bear in mind is bigger clients come with a whole different set of ups and downs within them.
Oh yes.
Like Matt, our creative director, he works with some huge clients, and I think there's more litigious stuff to worry about and more eyes to be crossed. And if you don't like going through NDAs and contracts and stuff like that, well, maybe that's not the right fit for you. Maybe you want to run a smaller, more personal studio.
Right. Well, I'm going to take I'm going to step back just for a second on the equity thing, because I feel like I can see something here. Sorry, I really feel like I need to go back on this for just 1 second. So like, let's say we're talking about like Ian here, right? And like Ian, like just yesterday I saw him tweeting about Tombow pens, right? Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So like, let's say like they're making a new line. They're like, let's make some Ian Bernard Tombow pens, right? Like they could pay him like a flat rate, but like if they really want him to like be like talking about on Instagram, making artwork with like Tombow pens, really in there, like giving him some sort of equity where like he has a dog in the fight will make Ian be wearing Tombow shirts and talking about Tombows like infinitely, if he knows that the more he does so, the more perhaps money he gets. Anyways, I don't know.
Yeah,
you can do both, where you pay them 50% of what you would, and combine that with some kind of equity.
A whole lot of shaving cream.
I think we have a title for this episode.
Just shaving cream. All right, I feel like we're getting into a lot of like high level, pretty rare stuff in terms of equities. So in terms of like the average, perhaps novice designer, I think the biggest struggle is like the confidence of how to either raise your prices or just price yourself at all. Like, what am I worth? And you're at square one. You literally feel like you're plucking a number out of thin air. And
I think often you are.
Because like you have to. You have to kind of arbitrarily just pull a number out and then go with that and kind of test it. And there's not like a science or a guide to that. I think you have to go with what feels comfortable. And I think the key for me has been to push outside of my comfort zones. Like I think I mentioned this to you guys before. I would send an email out to a client or a prospective client, and I would cringe and be like, I can't believe I just suggested that price. That feels so uncomfortable. They're going to come back and say no. And then when they email back and say, yeah, that's great, let's start the project, it's like,
damn, why didn't I charge more?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. And then you think, dang
exactly.
It. They accepted it
either
easily.
That, or my immediate thing was, thank goodness I didn't go lower. Because literally me having the audacity and going outside my comfort zone just made me 25% more on that project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's definitely a fine line, and I think it definitely is where you are in your career, because I feel like I also need to mention when I was looking for a freelancer to help me do sort of work when I had overflow, I really just wanted a junior, and I interviewed so many young designers, and they were literally charging the same rate as what I was charging per hour. So I couldn't hire them. It was just not possible. And I couldn't understand where they got that rate from, because they didn't have the experience. Their work needed a bit of work. I would have to guide them a lot of the time. So it's basically they missed out from learning from somebody who's already kind of been in the industry, and I could have taught them so much and given them really hands-on experience, but I just ended up not hiring them because of their price. So it is a fine line. You've got to be humble. I think you've got to be really humble in the beginning. I think you've got to want to work hard, and then but at the same time recognize when you are sort of getting better at your trade, and you, especially when you're getting referrals. I think that's quite a good sort of gauge. When you're getting referrals, it means you're doing something right, and people are willing to actually mention you to other people. Then you can really sort of push your price up a bit more, and as you grow and as your confidence grow, you can kind of start choosing your clients better, and you can start interviewing them better. As Ian said, you need like you need to know which questions to ask to get better idea of what kind of quality client it is. And from there you can eventually become a person who can charge whatever they want, but which is in a dream world. But yeah, I mean, that's the process, I think.
Well, it sounds kind of like what you're saying, or is you kind of have to just like do it. Like depending on wherever you are, you just have to like be regularly doing it, and like you kind of get a gauge after a couple times of doing it, and like being part of a community of other designers. Like you'll know, oh, this number does not work when I offer it. This number is too low, and you kind of find a sweet spot. And then other designers say, well, this is what I'm doing, and maybe they're your peers in terms of their experience level, and you kind of get a feel for what's appropriate for you just by being out there.
I think that sweet spot is essential, and it's something that actually a lot of online businesses do, where say you've got a product for $100, and then people will literally like split test this stuff. So a lot of the time they will double the price of their product, and they get less sales, but they make more overall money. Oh, Ian's on the phone. And like the trick is you keep going higher and higher and higher and higher. If you're willing to kind of lose a few potential projects and just set aside a week or a month or however long to toy with your pricing, like if maybe you've got a few steady clients where you can keep the money coming in, or you have a bit of a buffer, I would literally set aside a month and test price points and go up and up and up until you reach that breaking point where it's like, okay, this is me maxed out for now. And then I would not only do that, because then you're going to be pricing yourself, fairly, but as high as you can actually, sustain. But then I'd revisit that every year or every couple of years, because it should go up over time. Definitely. As you get more credibility.
Yeah, I like how you kind of have like a methodology behind it. Because
that stops you pulling stuff out of the air. Like that's about as methodical as you can get.
Something practical you can do is, which I remember doing ages ago, is working out your hourly rate, just so you've got some rough idea of how much you want maybe from a project.
Oh, that's a good idea. I've also done that.
So you look at, there's some stuff online, I can't remember what it is, but that you can put in a number and it'll count, but, starting from how much do you want to earn a year? You look at maybe how much an employed designer would get, and you want to try and earn that.
How much do you have to earn a year? Even
that's
when you're starting.
And then you have that, you work out this figure, so okay, you can think, okay, I've got a logo design, might take 2 to 3 days for what they want. You work out how much that is in that sort of hours and work out a price there, and then add some on top for half day, a day extra, just in case there's any problems or they don't like it, have to sort of go around in circles. And so that's one way of sort of trying to come up with a price, trying to come up with a sort of ballpark figure sort of thing.
Well, and then you got to like account for like all like the extra time too. So like Ian, like I know you're like a lot of your like popularity or your credibility in like what you do is because you invest a lot of time in things that don't pay you, but they gather an audience around you. So like if you're working 40 hours a week and you're spending, 20 of those hours making, videos and stuff to draw people in, like you have to make up for that with the other 20 hours to make what you need to, feed your family or whatever. So like, it's not just what would I make if I worked 40 hours a week?
Most people never make it that far. Like this is getting away from the real arty stuff that we love talking about. This is getting into business, but you have to, if you're a freelancer, especially, say someone works out like their personal circumstance, they have kids and they're like, okay, maybe I need like $50,000 a year or something. And then like you say, it's like, well, maybe 5 of those weeks on vacations. So I'm not going to be earning or working there. And maybe I need to factor in 2 weeks because I'm probably going to be sick for 2 weeks.
Good point.
Over winter or whatever. And like the example with Ian, maybe I need 10 weeks to promote myself solidly and put in the legwork there. And so then you end up with a certain number of weeks or certain number of days, and then you have to reverse engineer your end goal of 50,000. And maybe it spits out an hourly rate where you go, there's no way, like that's far too high. And then at least you kind of know early on, this isn't sustainable right now. And it's like, okay, I either need to get more experience so I can hit that rate, or maybe I need to give up something else or scale it back or whatever it might be. But I think literally computing those numbers in, most people will spend months floating around and like charging a random figure. And then before you know it, it's like, okay, I'm going to have to go back to my office job because this hasn't worked.
Well, right. Yeah. Because if you're not charging enough, like it doesn't matter how many clients or hours you work. If the price is too low, you'll never hit the bar.
Yeah. I mean,
but I think it's not comfortable for designers to think like this always.
No, I mean, I remember asking some of my peers when I was first starting out how much they were charging per project, because I don't know what it's like for you guys, but here in South Africa, it's quite common to actually charge for the project rather than give an hourly rate. So, and then they would tell me, and it was always a ridiculously low amount. And then I'd tell them, have you done the sum of actually how many hours that would take you? So how much are you actually earning an hour? And if you figure that out, you're earning less than, I don't know, a cashier at Pick and Pay.
Yes.
You know, it's crazy. People don't they don't think like that. They don't do that sum. And when you actually point it out, they're horrified. So it's important. It's important to do that.
You know what's interesting about this and about what you were just saying is like, it kind of like, there could almost be like a whole holistic series on this, because it kind of is a holistic thing, you know, like you have to think about like when you're considering your pricing, you kind of have to consider, well, like, what about like my promotional plans, or what about like Tom said, like about being sick or vacations, which are times when like you're like, you know, refreshing your creativity and stuff. Like they all, like in a holistic way, to use the word for a third time, are connecting together, right? Like, and they all like do kind of like live off each other in some way.
Of course.
So I don't know, for anyone listening who is starting out, maybe that's the first step. Work out, like, reverse engineer your end goal, at least for the next year or whatever, what you want to earn, what kind of work you want to do, what kind of designer you want to be. And then you can start going after it, and you're pushing outside your comfort zone. You're doing all these things. Like, what else is missing in the puzzle? Like, is it all mindset stuff? Is it more like nitty gritty details?
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of his mindset.
And also, I suppose, something that it's only been in the past, you know, nearly 4 years, with having, you know, having a passive income. Because before I was lettering, or at the same time as I started learning lettering, I started I started to have start producing products. So I started off with I was really into sort of vintage logo design. So I did some vintage logo design templates and put them out on my store, and that became a sort of really tiny bit, but it might have been for 6 months, it was sort of like a quarter of what my overall monthly thing I wanted to get in was. So having multiple avenues of income is quite good, and helps you to then, if you maybe price a job wrong, it's not the end, you know.
Yeah.
It's a safety blanket.
Yeah, I suppose so. So, and then it lets you
explore things.
Yeah, and it then gives you, going back to sort of confidence thing, if you know that if you don't get that job because you priced it too high, you've got, you know, a sort of breathing room to wait for the next job that might come in, and then you can adjust your pricing. So I think, it's good. Like, I'm sure Dustin speaks on his, about with his, when he speaks in his workshops about it. You know, it's an amazing way of alleviating that pressure, knowing that there's something there earning you money. So, you know, just figuring out what that might be. It might be the case that you can, you know, if you're producing stuff, like if you're trying to push your portfolio, you're producing work that is your own stuff, it's, you know, you need to put it out there because you haven't got anything, you haven't done much client work. Maybe turn that into artwork you can sell on, you know, stuff like Society 6 or, you know, Etsy and stuff like that. So that you start building those multiple streams, rather than just having clients, I suppose, will just help ease the sort of monthly, I haven't got in enough.
Yeah, that pressure.
Well, you know what? Something really simple that just occurred to me that people could do is like, you just find the kind of clients you want and just ask them, like, just be like, hey, can you please just be brutally honest with me? I want to work for people like you. Here's what I've got. Here's how much I need to make. Like, where am I at here? Can you just brutally honestly tell me, is this good enough? Is this not? Why would you not hire me? How much, like, do you think, how much do you I mean, I guess there's a power to like just saying, can you just tell me? Like, I remember I was working with someone a while back, and after we had negotiated a deal, then I said, can you just tell me, this was my first time doing this, can you tell me, like, did I like get a good deal, like, or did I not get a good deal? Could I have gotten more? I was like, be brutally honest with me.
Did you rip me off?
Yeah. And I mean,
your cards in a poker game. That's.
I just felt like I had to, because I was like, I mean, he could lie to me, but like,
I'd love it
I think
if it's like, no, I ripped you off.
And it was insightful, and he told me some stuff, and I don't know. I just guess like sometimes like it's funny because like sometimes we like really jump around what the solution is, and sometimes it might just be to just be like, look, I really want to do like this label for you. I don't know how to get the job. Like, how much? You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you just have to ask people like to tell me what would make your day.
I actually really like that, like trying to get brutally honest feedback, and straight away I'm playing out a scenario in my head with a designer and client where the designer's like, if you tell me how little I'm worth, I'll tell you how hideous your logo is, or something like that. So it's like a fair trade of honesty. That's the real honest designers.
Yeah. Well, I actually once did that for an interview. I might have told you guys before. It was a high risk. I went to a job interview, and I basically walked in and showed them a redesign of their magazine because their magazine was shite. So.
Oh, is that our first curse word on the podcast?
Sorry, beep. So
it's not a cuss word here where I'm from.
Basically, it didn't look good, and I basically told him his magazine looked horrible, and here was my version of it, and I ended up getting the job. But
that could go one of two ways.
It normally goes the other way, not the way that it would.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, security escort this woman out.
Exactly. I can't picture anyone being so evil as to get sweet Lisa Glanz and drag her out with security guards. That would be a sight to be seen.
I like that you think I'm sweet. That's good.
Maybe I just don't know you well. I don't know.
Yeah, no, Dustin doesn't speak for Ian and either. Okay, so maybe shall we do a quick fire round of tips off the top of our head if someone's looking to raise their prices? Like literally like bang, 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 just kind of whatever comes to mind. I mean, the first one for me would be just do it.
Yeah.
Literally just raise them. It's the lowest hanging fruit. Just do it and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Great.
It depends if it's for, are we talking for existing clients or just new clients? Because I think it's harder to rate, like we were saying earlier, harder to raise them.
I would say new.
Okay. I like the idea of just keep going, just keep raising it. And then, you know, if you're starting to see a trend of everyone's still saying, is saying, no, you're too expensive. There's going to be people, a handful of people who are going to say it's too expensive, whatever you say. But pricing it, being clear in your email as well, giving reasons.
Yeah,
I was just thinking about when I get someone round to quote for something around my house, sometimes it's not about the price, it's about whether I have confidence in the person.
Absolutely.
Like if I know, if they sort of give me advice on, like, they come around to quote and they said, oh, but have you thought about this? You could get, someone else, it might be the case they give you some advice that's not meaning that I have to get them in again. It means they sort of say, oh, you could get this person over here that's nothing relating to what that guy's come around for. It just instills confidence in you, thinking, actually, this guy isn't the cheapest, but he knows what he's talking about.
Right.
And I think that can be the same with design, is if you just randomly put a price and nothing to go with it, why, say if I was the client, why am I going to go with you? Just, I need to know that I can trust you and that I have confidence in you doing the job, and that money is going to be well spent.
Yes.
So just think relationships, value what, trying to, because it's mainly emails, just instilling confidence in the client will get you, the price might become a secondary thing over if they trust you to do the job. So
absolutely. I'm going to have to, for mine, just reinforce what Ian said, because I think he has it spot on. I think if you become a student of what makes a client really happy, and you become a master of knowing what they want and giving that to them, then, and you can instill that confidence where they feel like, I pay him this money, and in exchange, I know I get this. I know it's a winner. I don't have to worry about it. I can sleep at night knowing that someone's going to deliver something great. I think that people will pay large amounts of money for the assurance of knowing that it'll actually get done right. So I would just reinforce what Ian said about that for sure.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, it's a whole thing of if it's a new client, you kind of have to gauge if they understand what design is worth, and if they have a good understanding of the service that you're going to offer them and what you're going to bring to the table to their business. I think you can raise your price. I mean, that's a given. You're going to add so much value to their business, so they should pay you for it. That's my opinion.
Good point.
For sure. I'll add a little fifth one in there. I think allocate your time wisely. So if, for example, you find you're spending 15 or 20% of your time fielding questions and emails from unsuitable clients, then I would advise reallocating that time, redesign your portfolio or your website, come up with like better wording on it that basically puts off the wrong people, attracts the right people. Yeah. And then use your valuable hours, because time is the asset when you're a freelancer. Use your time and your hours to go and promote yourself to new clients, whether that's like cold calling them or just having a better portfolio landing page for them to come and visit and convert them better, or putting out content on Instagram like Ian does to attract clients. I'd look at any time that you're wasting that isn't really helping you or your business, and I would put that into something proactive that's going to basically back up a higher price range. And I've seen this all the time, like when people rebrand, they can double their rates because they've got a stronger brand. And if you're wasting all your time on meaningless stuff, that's not an effective path to getting your prices up.
For sure.
Not at all.
I remember way before I was a designer, when I was in a band, my friend was a web designer, and he used to always say, if you take care of your clients, the money will take care of itself. And I've always found that tends to be true.
It's true.
Yeah. And well, that's when you get referrals, right? Which is the most powerful way to try and build your business as a designer, because there's no like, we all hate selling. We're all creators. We want to go like hide under the duvet or something rather than actually like we hate this stuff. But if someone comes to you and it's like, oh, my friend Bob said you're the best designer in the world, please can I work with you? That's pretty easy. It's like, yep. Tell Bob I said thanks. But yeah, that's easy.
Love that.
Yeah.
Cool. So I guess I don't know if that just about covers it. It's like, have a bit of confidence. In fact, let me issue for all the listeners, a final challenge. And I'm going to accompany this with like a legal disclaimer. If you suffer loss of earnings or clients, please don't hold us responsible. But I'd love for people to try and see what happens if you double your rate. Like just temporarily try it, and don't do it obviously if you can't risk doing that or any knockback, but just do it, and I guarantee a number of people will suddenly have clients going for that new rate and be like, I wish I'd done that sooner.
Good advice.
Thanks so much for listening this week. We hope you found some useful tips for pricing yourself, and more than that, positioning yourself for success as a designer. As always, you can find full show notes over at honestdesigners.com or search The Honest Designers Show over on iTunes. If you do have a moment, we'd hugely appreciate you jumping over to iTunes to leave a quick rating or review, as this is one of the best ways for other designers to discover the show. If you would like some help from the Honest Designers themselves, then you can post on social media using the hashtag #HonestDesigners, and we'd love to get involved and help you with your creative journey. That's all from us this time, and we'll see you next week.